Hello and welcome to the IdeaCast interview series, episode number 77. And my guest in this episode is Tiffany Zehara. And Tiffany is a humanitarian entrepreneur consultant, and I will have a link to her website, Humanitarian Entrepreneur, down below in the description field. And she consults entrepreneurs, and she also consults nonprofits, or she is a consultant for nonprofits. And so she works with individuals and organizations globally to, as she says, connect problems with solutions. She is a solution-oriented person. So I had a very warm and enlightening conversation about what she does. It was a pleasure speaking with her, and I hope you enjoy the conversation as well. And thank you for joining us. And I'd like to welcome Tiffany Zehara to the IdeaCast interview series. I'm looking forward to an interesting and thoughtful conversation with Tiffany today. And we're going to learn about Humanitarian Entrepreneur, which is what Tiffany, it's her project, it's what she does, and we're going to learn more about that. And so I think we'll start with that and check in with Tiffany and ask her about her background. YouTube audience, I welcome you guys as well. And now to you, Tiffany, personally, I welcome. I'm speaking of you, like,
I was waving to the audience too.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, by all means, yeah. The most that are going to be here are here right now, so we'll say hi. But yes, Tiffany, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here for, again, what I'm sure is going to be a nice, thoughtful, and informative conversation. We're going to learn about you and the work you do. So
yeah, I'm excited.
In that spirit,
hi, audience.
In that spirit, would you go ahead and give us some background or what you would like to share with the audience, and what you do in the world right now, and maybe what led you to where you are now in what you do?
Sure. So I actually started my entrepreneurial journey January 2020. Well, officially.
Okay.
There was some rumination before all of that. And so I really came from the nonprofit world, the nonprofit space. And I was always told that, to change the world, it's got to look this way. You want to make a difference, join a nonprofit, start a nonprofit, do these types of things. And so I was kind of stuck in that for so long. And then my eyes really started to open up and really be able to see social entrepreneurship and really all these ways of making a strong impact in the world that isn't also constraining on you. So you can uplift the world, and it doesn't have to look a certain way. You can make that difference. You can change the world on your own terms. And so what I do right now is I really work with businesses and organizations and individuals, all different types of entrepreneurs as well, really to make that impact in the world through the work that they're currently doing. So that could be candle making, that could be actual nonprofit organizations, that could be being a carpenter, that can be whatever it is that you are called to do in the world, what gift you are imparting into the world, but to make sure that you're doing it in a way that is in alignment with your values and doing it in a way that's uplifting the world, again, correlating that to the values that you have and the causes that you care about, and really tying everything together so that we can uplift the world together.
Very egalitarian. And is there it seems to me intuitively that there would be a sort of maybe a broad template, but a nonetheless functional template across the spectrum. Like you said, it could be a candle maker, it could be a baker, and all these different trades. Candlestick makers. Yeah, right. What was the first one? Something baker, candlestick maker, right? So yeah.
I always get it wrong, but yes.
Okay, I'm sure somebody can make a comment for that for us. But yeah, the continuum of how we apply ourselves, and I would think that would even go over into sort of more modern vocations or disciplines like tech and things like that. Yeah, so it's fascinating, and so it's grounded in sort of an ethos or an ethics. Yeah, and so to understand complexity or diversity in our mindsets and cultural backgrounds, do you find it easy to, or do you work in real time with people to be flexible and understand maybe their background and take a relativistic perspective and say, if they're from a particular part of the world,
Mhm.
that ethics or whatever has to, so in other words, us Western folks, we're not going to impose that on somebody else's sensibilities.
Oh
How does
no,
that,
no,
what
no.
does that, yeah, what does that look like?
Oh, absolutely. Oh no. In my personal values and beliefs, I'm very much against that whole top down. No, no,
Right.
no.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, no, no. Because I will automatically buck the system and be like, oh, you want me to go left? Oh, I'm gonna go right just because you told me to go left. So I absolutely understand that. But yes, I work globally. I really work with what the again that those specific values. It's not this one size fits all template. It's what you believe and what you want to achieve in the world and really honing that to be as strong as possible. And I know that we're talking a lot about maybe more of the woo-woo type stuff, but it's the practical application of what can you do for lead generation. And when it comes to like the charitable organizations, the getting those donors in, it's really the making sure that you have a strong market dominating position. It's those practical steps married together with that altruistic aspect of uplifting humanity.
Okay. Now, is this scalable too? Can we look at sort of maybe a multinational or a very large corporation that can inform itself
Mm-hmm.
within its own system, its own ecosystem? And is this, so in other words, is it scalable?
Yeah.
I'll repeat that.
Yes. Yes. So I usually use the title of problem resolution specialist, and
Mhm.
it's super broad and super like, what is that? Like, what does that mean? Because it depends. There are when I first started, I
Mhm.
constantly heard the niche down, niche down, niche down, which is
Mhm.
why I specialized in the nonprofits and the consultants for so long, the consultants in the nonprofit space, because I just kept getting told niche down, niche down, niche down. But you're doing a disservice almost to yourself if you are trying to limit all the skills and knowledge and abilities that you have and just put it in
Mhm.
one little box. And you can do so many different things for so many different people, so you don't have to just ah make that square hole or that circle in the square peg, however that adage goes, because
Right.
clearly
Pound, pound,
marketing
pound.
adages today.
Yeah.
But yeah, yes. So to your question about that, there is a portion of what I do that is whether it is helping larger Western industrialized countries work with the developing world and really having that type of partnership. There is that framework. It's really the problems of the business, whatever that looks like, and trying to do the great work that you're doing in the world. It's being able to work through that system. And I
Mhm.
do that in many, many, many different ways. But it's a very individualized approach, working with your unique challenges, whether that is the larger corporations and what the challenges are in your environment and just dealing with the diversity, equity, and inclusion, or whatever the particular challenges you're having, or whether it's smaller, medium-sized businesses that are just struggling with, I've maybe making 6 or 7 figures in revenue. However, my profit margins are
Mhm.
horrible.
Mhm.
So it's all those different types of things. And especially when it's I want to be able to do so many good things and donate to all these causes, but again, like I can't even put food on the table. Like my profit margins are so bad.
Mhm.
How am I supposed to do that? I'm just struggling, but I don't understand because I'm making 6 or 7 figures as annual revenue.
Mhm.
So it's all these different things that we're not taught in schools. We're very
Yeah.
much taught to exactly what I said earlier of, okay, this is how it's got to be. You fall in line. So it's really getting you out of that box and
Mhm.
encouraging you to break those molds and listen to what you're supposed to be here, but to do in this world, and why you're here, but having somebody support you in a very practical way with those, understanding the vision that you have, the values that you have, but again, the very practical skills of, again, lead generation and scalability and the time issues and the financial issues and all of those type of things.
Mhm. And if someone goes down this path and operates through, again, more of an ethically grounded, through a lens of ethical grounding, or sustainable operations, equity operations, things like that. Does that allow them to, so I'm developing maybe a false dilemma here. Does that allow them to still be competitive and work with the folks that are maybe not so informed and that they're more cutthroat or ruthless? Are there ways to navigate that kind of typical market system pressure? Are they, so in other words, is resilience built into that? Is that okay? A guiding force, if you will.
And it's interesting, especially for like entrepreneurs who are starting out, who I really see this with women entrepreneurs too, who are like, oh, I'm not going to start my own business because I don't want to be that person. And what they're saying is, I don't want to be that sleazy salesman. I don't want to be these cutthroat, ruthless type tactics. Or it's people who are like, I don't know what to do. I just started. I'm hearing this. I need to do this. I need to do that. I need to do da. And it's all these things. And sometimes people are just overwhelmed with that. Or sometimes it's like, okay, I tried this, but it didn't work. Okay, you tried it for 2 days. But again, it's the overwhelm. You don't know. But the reality is, all of these, you gotta do this, you gotta do that, you gotta all of that stuff works, but it depends on your personality. So if you're trying to do something, yes, the sleazy salesman tactic works because they have that type of personality.
Right.
It's not going to work for you if you're trying to implement these. Again, I keep saying sleazy salesman, but like those and what I mean by that is these sales tactics that aren't in alignment with your values. And so if there is that disharmony, it's not going to work for you because people are going to sense it. They're going to know that you're being inauthentic, and that's where they're going to get that sleazy vibe from. Because really what that sleazy vibe is that disconnect in what they believe and what is actually the reality. It's, oh, I'm going to just try to do this because this is what I've been told I need to do. So it's really and the reality is, people think that sales is just, yuck, I'm being sold to, but it's not, because when you reframe your mind around this, when you realize that, if you have this great product, you're sharing it with the world. Like, if this is going to help me, please tell me about this. Please tell me about this. I need to know this because it's going to make my life so much easier. So if you reframe your thinking around what sales is and how it looks and how you need to do it, it completely changes things. If that answers your question about the competition angle of things, because it's not really about the competition, because you're doing this in alignment with your values, if that makes sense.
It does. And it does. And as you said, that people can intuit sincerity, and they can intuit a genuine trust in the product or the service or whatever is being provided. And so I see that mapping onto a person reconditioning their mind to pivot from being the creator to being the salesperson of that. And sometimes the two shall not meet. People who are intuitive and very creative may not have that charismatic A-type extroverted nature. I mean, sometimes that happens, but a lot of really creative people, and I'm stereotyping, that may seem alien until maybe you can develop it, maybe you can emerge from that. And so, yeah, I totally, I get that. And I see that, how that can be developed.
Actually, can I just piggyback off of that?
Oh,
so you don't have to change your personality, because if you're an introvert, honestly, and I know people are always like, there's no way you are. I'm actually an introvert, because it's about where you get your energy from. And people be draining. It's not all people, but like this is why I got my schedule the way I do, and very much there's power in being an introvert. There absolutely is. And you don't have to be like all the the stereotypical stuff of going to all the happy hours and doing all the things that I would just would cringe at. But when I started to go to networking events, I really started to flip the way I was seeing it, and the way it's we're being sold a certain methodology too. We're being sold a certain, this is how it has to be. But it doesn't. If you flip the way it is and you're offering something to the world to make it better, whether, again, that's, shoe baker, candlestick maker. One of these days, we're
Yeah.
going to get the adage. Whatever it is, there's a reason why you're doing whatever it is in the world. And so if you're offering that to make people's lives better,
Hmm.
people need whatever it is
Hmm.
that you're offering, because you were given this gift for a reason. And
Hmm.
there's power in that. And
Yeah.
you were given the personality that you have, the way you look, the way you act, the way you think, for a reason. And there's power in that. You don't have to try to change
Yeah.
who you are, because that's going to come off as disingenuous.
Hmm.
And people want the real you. They really do. I mean, there's so much of this social media fake persona, but you see it. You
Hmm.
see that it's not real. I mean,
Right.
it may look very, very pretty in the photos, but it's not real. And
Yeah.
even when we were talking offline about, like, if you actually edit this and you were talking about the beauty of just the realness, the authenticity.
Yeah.
And so there needs to be more of this in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking as personally as an anecdote, I probably let's see, there's extra, intra, there's a, what is it, mesoverted, or there's a term for it. But
Yeah.
anyway, whatever that middle ground is, I find myself
Hmm.
there a lot because I prefer to
Hmm.
be not disturbed and alone most of the time. But when I'm out socially, I love it, and I
Yeah.
love people, and I love engaging. But oh, there's a term and I can't remember. But anyway, it's that middle
Hmm.
ground. And so
Yeah.
what I might suggest to somebody in the audience is that if you do find yourself on the sort of more introverted end of the spectrum, that your passion for what you're doing can be a
Hmm.
proxy for that, and it can energize you, and you'll
Hmm.
surprise yourself. Because again, I prefer to be alone. I prefer to just sort of, read or study or whatever. But again, if I'm into something, if I believe in something, then I can express, sort of
Yes.
channel it through that way. So it's just a little hack tip there that
No, but
helps.
that's a beautiful way of saying that. That
Yeah.
absolutely is. So thank you for
Yeah. Ambivert.
really clarifying that.
Ambivert, I think
Yes,
is the term.
ambivert. Yeah.
Yeah, finally. Beep, beep,
Yeah.
beep, beep came out of my little brain. Yeah. I like that term though, because
Yeah.
to suggest that there's a fluidity there. And
Hmm.
like you were saying, in fact, I was just listening to, it wasn't a podcast, it was a guy named Mike Levin, who's a biologist. I'm going to be interviewing him next Monday. And he had a
Hmm.
guest on who was a neuroscientist or a neurologist. And he threw out this statistic, and must be in the literature, that, by the time you reach age 26, um, it's not that, so you form as a person with an identity and a persona, and you sort of congeal or reify yourself by the time you're in your 20s and early 30s. But there's also this external pressure of what, and it's not a conspiracy, it's just more what the collective, sort of normatives, peer relations kind of things, expect from you. And so it's
Hmm.
your education, it is the market system, and you as an employee, and a peer pressure, for lack of a better term, that kind of holds you in this space of what you are expected to be. And that may also,
Hmm.
so it may be very complex, that there's your personality traits, and psychology enters into this. But he
Hmm.
made an interesting point that there is going to be this solid resistance to flexibility and emergence and change and blossoming and renaissance expressions of yourself. And I thought, oh, that's an interesting
Hmm.
idea. Now, it could be bupkis, but he was, a credible person in this conversation. So anyway, I just throw that out there as another idea that, don't think it's
Yeah.
all you. It could be that your relation and relationality with others may, have this constraining, effect. And I know I'm digressing a little bit from what we were talking
No,
about,
you're
but
not.
I think it is somewhat relevant to what we're talking about there. So again, to all the ambiverts and introverts out, extroverts, whatever, keep going. But those of us that are more on the other end of the spectrum, it's like, have faith, and
Yeah.
have that self-confidence that you can resist the external pressures to stay in a particular bracket of yourself. So,
Yeah.
um,
Well, because the
did you want to
introverts
finish?
not talk. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Because the introverts aren't, we're not, we're starting to be represented more,
Mm-hmm.
but there's still very much a push towards the extroversion. And
Oh
as
yeah.
somebody who's, I mean, everybody in my life will tell you I'm reclusive because I need
Mm-hmm.
to recharge.
Yeah.
And so I can be on for at least so long,
Yeah.
but it's because of all that external. And I realized this. I had an epiphany at the grocery store on Sunday.
Oh,
It's
cool.
because there's so many people that have, like, again, these set beliefs on how
Mm-hmm.
life has to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really where the draining is. It's not just the collective. It's there's
Mm-hmm.
so much of this. Well, what do you mean you think like this? What do you mean you have this idea to I keep going to the candle business. But like, you want to take your candles and sell them globally and like do all these great things and be able to help all in all these different ways with the candles. Like, why? Because you have this belief that you are supposed to be doing this in the world, and there's nothing wrong with that. So to be able to listen to that inner knowing, that inner wisdom, and be able to tune the naysayers out and all of that type of thing. I think that this really it's more than just, okay, well, how do you recharge? How do you get your energy? It's how do you believe in yourself and have faith and have that self-worth when you have everyone else in your life saying, why would you do that? Like, what are you thinking? You're crazy.
Especially the elders, you'll ruin your life. Because my wife and I have been, I call it chronically self-employed since for as long as she's been with me, which is like 26 or 7 years. And her family was like, you're doing what? Because we've owned a restaurant, 2 landscape businesses and a newsstand. And they're always like, you need to get a good job with a company that you can, these are people who lived in the 50s, 60s, and 70s when they were working, or they lived and worked in that time period. And things are different. There are not much in the way of that anymore, unless you have a master's in something. But if you're just a working class kind of person, those good jobs with manufacturing, let's just say that sector has fizzled out a little bit and pretty much gone overseas. So I think we're in a different sort, and the millennial generation is certainly facing this right now. They're dealing with not having that milk and honey kind of narrative that was, again, prevalent, I think, in the 50s, 60s, and 70s and into the 80s. And then things started, neoliberalism started to take over, and people were exporting jobs out and things like that. But anyway, And so in your doing the work that you do you find that I would intuit that you are that people are attracted to you who are already of this proclivity, this inclination to want to do good. They want to improve their ethical grounding, and they're being more socially aware. But do you find any like born again stories where a corporation or a company or an individual business entrepreneur may have been more on the aspect of cutthroatiness or whatever we want to call that, but less egalitarian perhaps? And do you find those kind of stories, or is it more just people who are already predisposed to being more empathetic and grounded and stuff like that?
So
a long-winded question.
So
it's a good question.
No. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to answer this. So I have the ability to work with a lot of different types of people and personalities. However, I tend to repel certain. And so when you're talking about just energetically, I just tend to repel like the cutthroaty and the like I want a schedule, I want everything, and like there's a very palpable just disconnect, and we just kind of okay, this isn't going to work, is it?
But they do approach you. Are you saying that
they do? But I think it's we figure out really quickly, and this is the whole thing of this whole idea of competition of it's really, we need to reframe how we look at, just because somebody does what we do, that doesn't mean that we're going to have less, so, and this is one of the things is, okay, if we're not a good personality match, for working together, that's okay. This is why I have such a strong referral network. I'm constantly referring people here. I've got somebody else here. You find the best fit for you. You don't have to work with me. I am not your one and only shot. Like I just had somebody, and she's like, why are you referring them to me? Like you can do, I'm like, no. I'm honestly realizing that she's going to just be such a better fit for you. I'm going to be doing her a disservice. Yeah, I could work with her, but you're going to be able to take her that much farther. And I recognize my own limitations. And that's not, I'm getting less by referring to other people. Like it's collaboration. It's not this competition. It's cooperation. It's collaboration. And when we actually have this mindset of, we're all in this life together. We're all here to help each other. Our gifts are our gifts for a reason. And we're going to get the people that we need to get to survive. It's okay. And if we're not, for whatever reason right now, because I'm not trying to downplay any of those who are struggling with business, especially in this economy right now. There are lessons in this. There are absolutely lessons in whatever you're going through right now,
Mm-hmm.
but you're going to attract the clients that are right for you. And if they're not right for you, then you can pass them on to somebody who they are a good fit for. And I know that that's not, you know, a fun thing that people like to actually have the conversation on, of like, I want all the clients. But
Mm.
why do you want all the clients? Why do you want all of these people? Can you really do
Yeah.
all the good for them? Can
Mm-hmm.
somebody be doing it better? And that's okay. And to recognize that, because you're going to find somebody who's even a stronger fit for you. And
Mm.
it's just going to be a better cooperative relationship instead of, fighting each other during this whole working relationship. And do you really want that?
Yeah.
So
No, I
yeah.
agree, and it's across disciplines because coaching and therapy and things like that that's part of the process.
Yeah.
If you look at the coaching industry
Hmm.
or sector or whatever you want to call it, that somebody may be specialized and somebody comes to them with X problem or X thing that they need to, and here, I'm going to pass you on to Mary or Susan, and they're going to take
Hmm.
care of you, and because that's not necessary. I've sort of chosen to specialize in
Hmm.
whatever, so
Hmm.
yeah, I get that, and that makes perfect sense. And I think you said it's collaborative.
Hmm.
It's an exchange or a tete-a-tete or whatever, that only builds a network and a system of cooperation. And yeah, so that's beautiful. That's really
Hmm.
wonderful.
Hmm.
So in everything we've said so far, I think we have a good uh, outlook and forecast for the future of our current market system being
Hmm.
what it is. To cut to the chase, capitalism
Hmm.
can function and can be ethically informed. It can be beneficial on a broader spectrum or a broader
Right.
scale if it's
Right.
done right. And so,
Yes.
you being immersed in this, can you
Hmm.
put on your prediction, your psychic tea reading leaves hat, and just there was a guy, Johnny Carson, used to do Karnak the Great. I don't know if you ever seen that, but because this was like the '70s, but he used to put up an envelope to his head, and Ed
Hmm.
McMahon would have, the question would be there, and then they'd open the envelope, and it was a gag. It's on probably on YouTube. But anyway, that's he would make predictions, and they would always be gaffes. It'd always be something
Yeah.
like they would ask a question, and it'd be the worst possible answer, but it still fit. Anyway, so your Karnak the Great impression here.
Okay.
What would you say prognostication wise? What the outlook is in terms of this emerging into a strong force in Western markets and
Mhm.
globally, including emerging markets and things like that. Do you see this getting traction and moving forward, especially with
I
younger generational players? One last thing,
Yeah.
younger people coming in whom I have the highest respect for being uh, idealistic in the right way in this regard. So I'll
Hmm.
leave it at that.
Yeah, I think that there is hope because I
Mm,
think people are starting to see, the so many years of that competitive cutthroat mindset.
mhm,
And then when you start to shift into thinking more holistically and really altruistically and that cooperative, collaborative mindset, you're seeing that, oh, I'm not losing out. I'm
mhm,
not suffering. Um, and I think that when you're talking about the economic markets and it's like all the time, oh, the economy's horrible. And it's always like every few years, everything's horrible, doom and gloom. But I think we also need to remember that that's what sells the newspapers. That's what
mm,
sells the TV ratings. And so
yeah,
when there's this constant emphasis on fear, that's how we're controlled.
right.
And so when we start to really listen in to what our inner knowing is, our own inner guidance, and
Mhm,
now sometimes you have to clear through the fog because you've got a lot of stuff down there and you're still needing to
yeah,
process.
yeah,
But when you can actually authentically listen, you know
mm,
that it's okay to help, somebody else who may be considered your competition, or
mm,
it's okay that, yes, everything looks absolutely horrible right now, but it's going to be okay.
mhm,
I'm going to be okay. And even if, okay, I don't know how I'm going to get today's meal, it's going to work out. There's a lesson in this.
Mm-hmm.
And finding out what that lesson is. Now, of course, that lesson doesn't always appear right away because sometimes you still have to move through more stuff, but there's a reason for everything happening. So I have hope, but I think we also just need to remember that all the doom and gloom predictions, whatever it is, I mean, this has been going on since the dawn of time. It's always, but that's how we are controlled, and is that fear mindset. So really having that leading with empathy and compassion and love and just peace in our businesses, in our life, it's really, it's going to make just a world of good for all of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, amygdala capture sells advertising, and that's, what we see on the news networks. And when I open up my browser, 2 or 3 times a day, I get, I won't even mention who the service provider is, but they have news, and it's all like gore porn. It's like the worst possible headlines. And I'm like, where do they come up with this? And why do I need to know? Again, so I know it's a rhetorical question, but yeah, and I'm going to be heretical here, but I think if I could wave a magic wand of authority, I would diminish advertising down to some very whoever can argue with me that there are essential components to that marketing aspect of business, maybe to get new products online, maybe to inform the public of innovation and things like that. But when you're trying to sell me Coke for the 150 trillionth time, Coca-Cola, not cocaine, but just right? Let's be clear here. They're both kind of in the same bracket, sugary addictive thing. But anyway, Coca-Cola has tried billions of times to get my attention, and it's like, I already know you exist, and I don't like Pepsi. If I'm going to drink junky soda, I'll drink your crap. But so, and I'm being hyperbolic here, but I think that maybe that hopefully comes in online with more ethically informed consumerism and the inverse of the market system of enterprise. That there'll be less of a need to spend billions of dollars trying to force images onto you and ideas onto you, and again, harnessing the power of the news systems, the journalism and so forth, whatever you want to call it, to keep us in fear all the time, or to keep us aroused in a very negative way. And because that, like you said, that it's not ending. It's not ending well, but not what's the word I'm looking for? Perpetuating itself well, like daily. It's like it's never going to end until people kind of shift their focus. Anyway, I'm pontificating here, but
no, it's okay. It's making me think about, and I'm trying to remember the guy's name, and of course I can't. The basically the grandfather of the public relations and marketing, and how he had the whole slogan of like torches for freedom, getting women to smoke. And I'm sure somebody in the audience is yelling his name.
Yeah, you've come a long way, baby, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So like and what the whole idea behind that was to really play on our emotions, because when you have essentially all your essentials taken care of, you have food on the table at the moment, and you have a roof over your head, and you have safe water. Of course, this is not everywhere, but for the countries where this is, okay, so how do you get people to buy stuff? Like, do you really need 20 pairs of shoes? Like, I mean, do you really need it? No. So it's pulling on our emotions. So it's looking at the holes that we have in ourselves that we're trying to fill with, oh, well, I see that Coca-Cola ad. It's this happy family tripping through the daisies and all these things. Oh, I wish I had a happy family and it was a sunny day and not covered in snow. Like all these things, just playing on your emotions to get you to sell, and to get you to buy whatever they're selling. And so it's really going back to yourself and knowing who you are, knowing your values. And there's always going to be the din out here of somebody or something trying to catch your attention. And this really goes back to knowing who you are. And let me tell you, it's a lot of work. It is not easy. It is painful. It is a long process. But when you really know who you are and what you want out of life and in this world, and being able to constantly check in of like, okay, do I really need that Coca-Cola, or do I need that 20th pair of shoes or whatever, even though they're telling me that they're selling me happiness and just success and like all of these things. Is that really what I want? Or what is it that I'm really looking for right now? What is that hole I'm feeling that I need to fill? So it's really being able to check in with ourselves and know this is what we really want, not
Mhm.
this whatever product's being pushed on us by
Yeah.
advertisers.
Yeah. And I'm almost feeling a trauma bond. I just had this image of like a trauma bond emerging because we medicate by consumerism,
Mm.
right? So,
Mm-hmm.
but we
Mm-hmm.
medicate because we're stressed out, and we're stressed out
Yes.
because we turn on the TV and there's, a woman
Mm-hmm.
throwing all her children in a lake with bricks around their necks for whatever horrible
Yes.
thing they do. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
this feedback loop. And so, yeah, I think having that awareness that for me, it's about consumption of the
Mm-hmm.
media. And so I don't watch, I watch TV, but it's like, NHK World Television in Japan, and it's usually arts and culture. It's the only live television I watch, and then everything else
Mm-hmm.
is YouTube. Which you can go down various paths with YouTube. You can watch a bunch
Mm-hmm.
of weird, stuff that's not healthy or
Mm-hmm.
positive affect or anything like that. But I try to focus on creative or intellectually stimulating things, and so that's how I cope. That's how I do it. And
Mm-hmm.
things still sneak in, but for me, I think I live a less stressful life. I mean, there's obviously stuff
Right.
interacting with
Right.
the world, driving, and going to stores and stuff like that. But overall, I find myself not missing it, not missing
Mm-hmm.
the addiction to the amygdala capture, the addiction to the cortisol shots, or even dopamine shots when they put a cute little puppy on for an ad, or a gorgeous
Yes.
guy or a gorgeous person, whatever on TV, and you're like, oh, I could be that person. So anyway, I
Mm-hmm.
just it's like a diet. Like if you can restrict the intake, I think that helps break that feedback loop. And again, I'm jokingly calling it a trauma bond, but really it is, because
It
you
is.
again, you go to you get on Amazon to go buy a widget just because you're stressed out, and you can play with
Mm-hmm.
your widget for 20 minutes and then throw it into the trash, and the cycle repeats itself. So
If you even get it out of the package, because you may just be like, oh, okay, well, I'm over it now
oh,
because
we've
it
known.
took 2 days.
Oh my God. Yeah,
I needed
right.
it. I needed it at 2 a.m., on Tuesday. But
Yeah,
now that it's Thursday at 5 p.m., I
I'm
don't need this. Why did I get this? And so it just
right.
sits on the shelf, you know? Yeah.
And the carbon sink, the drain,
Yep.
the carbon footprint gets bigger and bigger. So invoking Amazon and people like, or companies, people, well, according to the Supreme Court, they're people, but corporations like Walmart, do you see in this future thinking, forward thinking thing, do you see a decentralization in commerce? Do you think maybe generations that are onboarding now, like Gen Z under 25, 26, are seeing microeconomies a little better?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm just kind of hoping that and you could still sort of get your cake and eat it, have your cake and eat it too. You can buy things and feel good about things, but if you do it with local
Mhm.
purveyors or regional purveyors and smaller scale economies, that would be again, if I could wave that magic wand, I would like to see a sort of decentralization of where our
Mhm.
money goes. We don't need any more Jeff Bezos or things like that, or Sam Walton and all that kind of stuff. And they're just poster children of this kind of thing, but these
Mhm.
conglomerated systems that I don't know. I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
kind of
and I'm sorry, go ahead.
no. I'm kind of torn because I see the efficiency and there's arguments to be
Mhm.
made for centralizing, but
Mhm.
nonetheless, it creates power structures that I just find disturbing. And so anyway, but go ahead.
No, 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 because I'm glad that you finished that thought because that's where I was going to say is there's there is that being torn.
Hmm.
And so what I say to people is like because I'm not about banning anything like that. Like I'm
Right,
not,
right,
it's knowing why you're doing what you're doing.
right.
Why are you purchasing from this place? Why are you purchasing this item? Why are you purchasing from this place? And having that um cognitive processing of okay, this is why I'm doing this, and not just on automatic, not
Hmm.
just where things get um I'm pausing to say dangerous, but at the same time, I'm going to say dangerous is
Hmm.
when, especially like Amazon's notorious for this, of just like it's in your cart, so just click and in one click done,
Yeah.
which great business model,
Yeah.
great business structure.
Yeah.
However,
Painless.
at the
Ooh.
same time, from a human perspective, and just an environment perspective and all the packaging and all of,
Yeah.
that gets even before it gets to you and,
Hmm.
treatment of employees and all that type of stuff, it's why are you buying this? And why are you buying from this place? And why, and really having that be a part of your process. And I understand when you're super, super stressed out and you don't have time, but recognizing and knowing that that's why you're doing whatever it is,
Hmm.
there's no, I don't want to say there's no shame in this, but like you have to understand why you're doing what you're doing. And if this is the point you're at in your life, I mean, you may feel shame of, I'm stressed out because I don't have more time to spend with my kids. And this is, so I'm just going to, throw more toys at them or whatever. It's just recognizing that this is where you are in your life, wherever you are.
Hmm.
It's okay because you're learning a lesson right now. And I think that there can be so much of, when I was talking about that self-worth issue and, really that validating of who you are as a person, it's also, there's a lot of shame of, I thought I was going to be so much farther. If I, was asked 30 years ago, this is where I was going to be, this is what I was going to do. And here I am now, and I'm not achieving that. And it's that self-deprecating,
Hmm.
but recognizing where you are in your life, that there
Hmm.
is a reason for you to go through this, not beat yourself up. Life isn't happening to you, it's happening for you so that you can grow.
Yeah.
And realizing why you're doing whatever you're doing at this moment and really understanding that. And when I was at Oprah, Maya Angelou, when you know better, you do better. And
Okay.
and this
Yeah.
is why I always say that whenever I'm asked about my regrets, I don't have regrets because yeah, 20 in my hindsight's 2020. But in that moment, with the knowledge I had, I did what was best for me in that moment.
Yeah.
So it's focusing on that and really being a mindful consumer, a mindful employee, a mindful business owner. It's really being mindful about why you're doing what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. I agree. I agree. And just having the taking the time and mindfulness is so popular
Yeah.
now. Everybody's meditating and doing mudras and things. And this is part of that process. I tell people because I meditate a lot and it's like,
Mhm.
and I'm not by any means an expert. I just it's a personal
Mhm.
practice, but I like to talk with folks about that to say that meditation isn't just sitting and
Oh,
doing your
I'm
thing. It's it's
so glad
it's
you brought
in
this up.
real time,
Yes.
right, right. It's being
Yes.
mindful throughout the day.
Mhm.
Because mindfulness is a form of negation
Mhm.
of the sort of metacognitive sort of executive kind of
Mhm.
thinking that we do. It's tamping that down. Well, when you do that in real time, when you're interacting with things, I
Mhm.
think a salience window opens up, and so go ahead and throw in what you want to say. But I just think, yeah, I think it's not restricted to just sitting on your mat or wherever you are and taking 30 minutes a day or 10 minutes or whatever. It's something you can cultivate throughout the day. It's not like all the time. Like when you're driving down
Mhm.
the highway, you don't want to be like off in some kind of abstract thought. But when that can be afforded, yeah, I think it's a critical part of navigation of experience and life and all that stuff. So, but if you want to amend that,
No,
yeah.
no, I'm so glad you brought this up because this is so important to getting to know who you are.
Uh-huh.
And so, and it's interesting that you brought up the driving down the highway. I wasn't driving down the highway the other day. I was driving down, it was a busy road. It was not a highway though.
Yeah.
But like I was super stressed and I was,
Okay.
and, you feel,
Mm-hmm.
and I just had the sensation of just, because I hate relax. No, no, no. That's just gonna make me angry. Or like, why don't tell
It's
that to somebody
forced. Yeah,
who's
it's
already
forced.
stressed. Like,
Yeah.
why? No, don't do that.
Yeah.
That's horrible. Because it's actually like it's almost like you're not understanding and you're
Mm-hmm.
devaluing everything. And that's why it's like when somebody's just telling you to relax, oh,
Yeah.
you're invalidating me. But it was just like, okay, I'm just going to just relax my body. And so even that can be a meditation. It's really just recognizing who you are, where you are, and there is that mental component, but there's also the physical component. You can be meditating when you're walking. You can be
Mm-hmm.
meditating like when you are driving in terms of just relaxing your body. It doesn't have to be, again, that what you're saying is that sitting on the mat. And I think that this is why people so often will poo-poo, oh, I don't have time to meditate. Oh, I don't have time to do that. But it's not this strict, okay, emptying your thoughts. it's not this what we're told meditation is. And this is why people have that disconnect from it.
Mm-hmm.
And are like, no, I'm not doing that. I can't, I don't have time. I don't like that doesn't work for me. I just get frustrated. But meditation
Which is a great irony. I'm sorry to interrupt. It's like they can't even see the exceeding irony of that statement.
Yes,
But
yes,
go
yes.
ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's so true. But like but especially when you are so charged up though.
Yeah, yeah.
It's hard of like when you're so in the fog.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it's how do you move through the fog? And it can be just as simple as, okay, just relaxing your physical body of just concentrating on your feet and just saying, okay, relax. And then your legs and just like on each different part of your body and just asking it to relax. And you can do that while you're driving. You can do that in certain times that like if you're in a crowded waiting room, waiting to be called at the Department of Motor Vehicles, or, whatever it is, you can have these moments because these moments compound to be like the bigger changes over time. And don't feel that you have to be stuck in, okay, well, this is what's worked for me, because this is where, if you're not growing, you're dying. And then this is where we have the issues with people who are in their 70s, 80s, and who haven't dealt with all the stuff that has compounded trauma-wise over time, because it's like, oh, I'll deal with that later. I'll deal with that later. And it's those little things and looking at like, it's that bite-size chunk of just being able to take just a little bit off and a little bit off. And even if it's just connecting with your body, connecting with your thoughts, and even if it's just recognizing, okay, like all this stuff's going on right now, all of it, what do I do? How do I do this? And it's just really connecting into that and even leaning into that and asking, okay, well, what do I need right now? What can I do? And what little thing do I have control over that I can do to, even if that is just, walking outside barefoot for 5 minutes, something just little to really be able to connect back into who you are and remember who you are and give yourself permission to be who you are.
Yeah. If anything, it's a frame shift. So you're breaking the continuity of that stress continuum that's going on in your life. Like, kids driving me nuts, partners driving me nuts, whatever's going on, like you said, break it. It's that guy that
pattern interrupt.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's that TV show with Cesar Millan, the dog guy, the dog whisperer or whatever he was.
Oh yeah,
you remember him? And he'd have a dog that was going off the rails or whatever, and he'd go, like that, and boop, and the dog would suddenly
My mom does that. She does it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it works for us too, right? Except we have to do it a little more sophistication in the exercise and the implementation. But I love that analogy. It's like, oh, okay, yes, I was deeply ruminating and convergently focused and reciprocally closing on this stressing thing, this loop. But then again, like you said, walk outside without your shoes on, feel the sensations of the ground underneath you, and then that breaks that reciprocal closing or that convergence that's going on.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of power in that. And man, if again, the irony of people who say, I don't have time for that, I'm just gonna be stoic, and I'm just gonna, because stoicism's super popular right now, but stoicism is an element within a greater system or a component of a greater system to me. And I'm not trying to preach, but I think, it's good to be resilient, which is what stoicism tries to preach, or teach rather. But there are other elements and aspects to that. There's withdrawal, there's contemplation and reflection and in mindfulness, and there's even anti-fragility, which is to develop a greater emotional immune system to stressors and things like that, which can only be done when you're in a place of neutrality and silence or whatever it is that can help you rest and repair, much like your body has to do at night when you sleep. So, but
but if I can just actually add to that, because like I was just thinking about how, when we were talking about the trauma response to, or I was going on a diatribe about the trauma response.
which is important. I mean, especially like you said, our elders. I mean, they were the kings and queens and others of stoicism, but it was not a good stoic. It was just like, deal with it, stiff upper lip, and these were people who came out of the Depression and the wars and all this stuff. And so, you understand it sociologically or psychologically. But yes, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting what you were going to say.
No. I'm glad that you said that, because that's actually what was the actual reason why that jogged my brain, because for so many years, just in my family dynamic, I saw my mother as very emotional, and I saw that as out of control. And I saw my father very stoic, and that
Mm.
being strength.
Mm.
And so as I've moved through life, I was very much, oh, she's got the anger management problem. She's got this. She's just, just this angry, resentful,
Mm-hmm.
never mind all the trauma that I was dealing with and why that was happening. But it was very much, she's just angry.
Mm.
And so, the tools that you learn and you implement at certain ages aren't always the tools that you need when you're older.
Okay.
And so, yes, certain things may work for you when you are younger
Mm-hmm.
in certain situations. But if you're continuing to carry them over, whether that is that cutthroat, and going back to what you were talking about, that cutthroatness in business,
Mm-hmm.
if you're continuing to carry this over, though, and you're not evolving
Mm-hmm.
as a person, as we are evolving as a species,
Right.
then, again, if you're not growing, you're dying, and you're just dying, and you're stunting your growth, and you're not learning, and you're not growing to be all that you could be as a person. And that, from a very practical aspect, that could be, that spiritual mind body connection, but that could also be financially as well. That could be all that abundance that you see, that you want, but there's, oh, I make this excuse or that excuse, or it's those people, or da 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 da, or it's wrong to have that, or whatever your reason is. But to understand, going back to even the, why am I wanting this? Why am I doing this? Why am I craving whatever it is? There's no wrong in what you're, if you want that 9-figure salary, why though? Is it because you want to open all these schools? Is it because you want, like what is your why?
Right. The ends.
Because yes. So it's really trying to figure out who you are, why, and really growing, and not just being stuck in with the certain tools, the certain the mindset, the certain things that you learned. It's really growing and evolving, and remembering who you are and evolving.
Yeah, absolutely. Tiffany, I hate to say this, but we said we would probably do a hard stop in an hour, and I think we've got maybe about 10 minutes. And so I have one question. Oh, no. I wish we could. I'll bring you back. You'll come back, and we're going to talk some more. But I do want to stay to this timeline that we set for ourselves today. But I did come up with a question during this conversation. So I'm going to bring us back to what you do as a consultant and ask you a question to me that's theoretical, and see what you do with it, and see how it lands with you. And that is to say, in the pipeline of the consumer market system relationship, and ethically informed merchants and providers, do you think coaching and consulting an entrepreneur or a business to breach that area of consumerism with the consumer about debt and about, so in other words, in World War II, they had those billboards along the road. Is this trip really necessary? Because they were trying to conserve gas and resources. And so is that the business, so to speak, of a entrepreneur to check in with their client, their customer that they're providing a service or a good to, and say, are you comfortable with this purchase? Is this something that you're not going to stretch yourself too far? Because consumer debt is just outrageous. It's always been. I mean, probably for the last 50 years. But so anyway, I'll leave it. I'll hand that off to you and see what you think of that.
Yeah. And especially, actually, it's interesting about like the checking in with a person, because one of the things that I've started doing is when I'm starting to work with a client, especially one that's really stressed out in their business, really struggling a bit. The first question I ask them when we start to work together is, are you okay? Are you worrying about, okay, am I going to have to, like, am I going to be able to pay my mortgage? Okay, I can do it this month, but can I do it next one? And really assessing that type of stuff first, and really trying to figure that out, because, a lot of the times, we just are focusing on one thing, and it's a holistic. If you're just focusing on one area, we're so much more than just one thing, just our job title, or, our familial relationship as, child, spouse, sibling, whatever. We're so much more than that. And it's looking at that wholeness. And so, yes, there is that whole environmental component of things as well, of, okay, so you're looking at the supplier. Why are you doing that? What is your thought with that? And so where my first thought about the debt was, again, are you okay? Because if you're drowning in
Yeah.
just that and not work. Like, how am I gonna keep my roof over my head? Like that type of
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
We need to check that out first. But
Hmm.
yes, for your business, when it's supply chains and all these things, and of course, I'm always encouraging fair trade and sustainable and that type
Hmm.
of, and really like understanding why and educating people on this is the importance. Because I remember walking into a store once and I'm not going to say the chocolate person's name, the chocolate company's name, but it was just a well-meaning salesperson. And I was asking about fair trade because I just didn't know if this is a very well-known
Yeah.
company. And I didn't know. And I was asking the questions. And her response was, well, of course they are. And she cited the city in the Western country that the workers come from. And they said, no, no, no. And I was asking about, well, where it's like the actual cocoa beans are farmed.
Right.
And it was just like
Disconnect.
just complete disconnect. You could tell she had never thought about that before.
Mm.
So it's just having those type of conversations on how we are all connected.
Yeah.
Yes, it's easy to see just okay, I'm buying this shirt that's $3, but okay,
Yeah.
why is it $3?
Yeah.
What
What happened? What happened? Yeah. Can I meet the
exactly.
9-year-old child that made it? Yeah.
And as someone who's seen sweatshops
Yeah.
firsthand,
Yeah.
it's very much really getting out of your box, getting out of
Mm.
your comfort zone and
Mm.
understanding that we are a global community. We are all connected. It's easy to stay in, especially in the Western world of like, oh, we have everything, we can get everything delivered, we can stay in our house. Like we don't, you know what I mean? And it's just the Western media and like all this stuff. And it's easy to just be in that bubble, but really understanding
Yeah.
that we are all connected.
Mm. Amen.
Mhm.
Amen.
Mhm.
I saw something really heartwarming. It was last year or the year before, and there's a woman in Panama who is indigenous, and she was working with other indigenous women to do two things: to do environmentally sustainable, ecologically sound coca production, chocolate
Mhm.
production, as
Mhm.
well as returning to pre-colonial wisdom
Mhm.
to understand their culture better because of their relationship with the cacao plant, and
Mhm.
also empowering these women because ostensibly it was a matriarchal society before the Spaniards taught them how to,
Right.
blah, 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 blah. And oh God, it was so heartwarming to see that.
Mhm.
And I'm actually interviewing a guy in Costa Rica in a few weeks or a couple weeks, and he's reworking as a Western person, helping to
Mhm.
rework the or relearn rather the plant medicine and plant
Mhm.
relationship and traditions there. So it's good to see things like that. I just think it warms my heart. I say
Yes.
this in the spirit of fair trade and knowing
Mhm.
the supply chain and where things are coming from, and that things like that
Mhm.
would be what I would hope an ethically informed consumer can aspire to take a moment of their time. And with the accessibility of the interwebs and all that kind of stuff,
Mhm.
we can find these things, and as long as nobody's lying to us, we can say, okay, I'll choose this. It's $4 more for a pound of
Yeah.
chocolate or whatever, but I'm going to do that. And I try to do that in my own life. I try not to buy things from places I know that exploit the workers and yada, yada. So, yeah, there's hope. There's hope. Do you feel like there's hope as we
I do,
round
and
out?
I really think that the consumers are asking more questions, and so
Yeah,
this is putting more pressure on the companies
good.
to have the sustainable practices.
Hmm.
So it's there is hope because these questions weren't asked 20, 30 years ago. Like this
Right.
was not. I mean, I remember hearing about like, oh, the rainforest is all going to disappear by 2000, and technically still there. However, we weren't asking the questions of like, well, how, I mean, kind of like recycling, but at the same time it was like, oh, this thing that we have to do if it's
Mm.
even mandated in our area, because sometimes it was, especially areas where it's like, we still take things to the dump. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
depending on where you are and
yeah,
the country and the world, and but like we weren't asking these types of questions 20, 30 years ago,
yeah.
and now we are.
Hmm.
And so I have hope in even something like that. So
Good,
yeah,
good.
yeah.
Well, we'll end on that high note, but I also want to offer you the opportunity with the few minutes that we have left. Is there anything else you want to share? Anything else you want to bring to light relating to you, your work, and this discussion. Is there anything you want to end this on?
Sure. So I'm actually having a live workshop. I have
Oh,
a few dates scheduled out. I think you said this is going up today, but
yes.
my first one is the 20th of April.
Okay.
And then every 2 weeks up until June 1st, and then I'm going to assess from there.
Okay.
And because I work internationally, this is, accommodating to all of the different time zones. So
Oh,
even
okay.
if one is not a good time for you,
Hmm.
there are other options. And so I can share that link with you to share with the
Yes.
audience as well.
And
So
it'll be in the description field down
yes,
below. Okay, cool.
thank you.
Yeah, YouTube audience, I'll make sure that any relevant information to access Tiffany's work and discover what she's doing will be down below, as is customary on my show. So, well, Tiffany, I
Okay.
think this is a good place to stop. We ended on a kind of a high note there. It's like looking into the future, looking through the
In
perspex
the hope,
the
it's the
glass.
hope. Yes, it's not all doom and
Yeah,
gloom. It's hope.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I'm all for that, and that's why I do the show that I do. It's like bringing people up, and I don't have a huge reach, but I know these conversations are organic. They have their own discovery means, and I just have faith that it'll land into the right ears and eyes and so forth. But I really appreciate you coming on today. I knew it was going to be a good conversation, and it
Yeah.
bore itself out as being a good conversation. So I appreciate
Yeah.
that. And yeah,
Thank
we'll
you so
have you
much.
back if you had a good experience. We'll bring you
I
back.
did. Yes.
Okay, awesome, awesome. YouTube
Okay.
audience, thank you guys so very much for sitting with us and observing the conversation. And again, you can access Tiffany's work down below in the description. And we'll see you on the next conversation. Tiffany, I'll say goodbye to you after I hit
Okay.
the stop recording. But again, YouTube audience, thank you guys so very much.
Bye, YouTube.
Bye bye.